Welcome to the Swimming from Home talk show. I'm here with Indiana head coach Ray Looze. So Ray, to start out with, if you just want to take me through kind of Big Tens happened for the men and the women, and then things kind of got rolling with COVID-19. What was your experience like when that all first started going down?
Well, the Big Ten meets kind of went like we thought they would. The past few years we've been putting a priority on NCAA, so we had a lot of unshaved people like on just 3 days rest, and I thought we got through the Big Ten meets pretty well. We had a good number of people qualified, like our men's team. I think we probably had a great chance to get third, maybe fourth if we had an off meet. And so, we were pretty excited. But I remember like 95% of our women's team getting sick right after the women's Big Ten. So it was during us hosting men's Big Ten. So we quarantined them like we would typically do for the flu, but they were sick for like 10 days. And, we've been kind of speculating, did these guys have it? Because it was third week of February, and, it's quite possible, but they're young people and they all obviously recovered well, but it was a really, really severe flu. And some people like Cody Miller got it twice. But
Wow.
in any case, we were getting ready, for the meet, and we were excited. We had a lot of like new people, juniors make NCAAs for the men, like Jacob Steele and Spencer Lehman, and super excited. And that was a Tuesday, and then Wednesday, things started to not look so good, and rumors about the meet not happening were coming out. And then on Thursday, we were starting the taper of a lot of people, and during practice, it got canceled, like during practice, afternoon practice. So it was really just surreal. And then it was just a cascading of things. Like I remember, talking to Lily King afterward, and she said, if this would have been my senior year this year, I would have been devastated, because she was going for 8 NCAA championships in a row.
Yeah.
That was a big deal to her. That's something, she wanted to do from a longevity standpoint. And then like a week later, the Olympics were delayed, and we were kicked out of our pool, and we were, roaming around going to Evansville, and then we have no pool. So and it's just been so fast. And then everything kind of like died down, and we've been like at home, and the kind of the rat race that we sort of lived in has stopped. And I've decided that I don't know if I'd be a good retiree. But so that's kind of the take on it to this point.
Yeah. I know you said you just got off your team Zoom, which I know a lot of teams are doing now, whether that's just, keeping the communication up or doing dry land or whatever. So what is your role as the Indiana head coach been, shifted to now?
Yeah.
What's your day-to-day like?
We just had a head coaches meeting here at Indiana, and I took some notes, and we had Tim Elmore join us, and he's like an expert in communicating with Generation Z, and some of his stuff that he said, leading a meeting in crisis, or leading a team in crisis, personal before business, was his number one thing. So before worrying about swimming, how are you doing, because Generation Z, they really are social folks, and so just not going to class or going to practice, it's probably having a substantial effect on kids. And the other thing was hard conversations before easy ones. So Today I let them know some of the realities that we're going to be facing next year, like not going on training trip. And I would imagine that's going to be across the board with a lot of programs, because it's been something that, if you're fortunate enough to do it, that's great, but do you really need to do it? Probably not. It could be sacrificed. And then the big picture before the smaller details. So, the most important thing, we talk to our kids about is, are you healthy? Do you know anyone that's gotten this? And, and just making sure socially they're okay. They don't have any added anxiety, because some kids were planning on doing internships this summer, and those have been erased. I had a bunch of freshmen, probably half my incoming freshman class, where they were going to come here and go to summer school. They can still do online summer school, but they won't be coming to campus. So, I just want to make sure that our staff and our team as a whole is doing a good job of taking care of every individual.
Yeah. So on a personal note, how have you been spending this time? I'm sure it's more time at home than you've had in quite a while.
Yeah. Like, if you'd have told me 2 months ago I'd be spending this amount of time at home, I would have thought I was retired or something. So, like a great example today. So we were looking out the window, and we have about 3 acres here, and there was a family of foxes, like, a bunch of baby foxes and the mother. And I don't think I would have ever seen that had I been in my normal routine. I just wouldn't have had the time. I wouldn't have been here at this time of day to see something like that. And then doing a lot of walking, and 4 or 5 miles a day. And when you walk, you see things way more than you would if you're driving, or even if you're riding a bike. So, like, just my neighborhood, I'm seeing things that I didn't see before, like changes to people's homes, getting to know them a little bit better. So that's been pretty awesome. I wish I could say I've been reading books and stuff like that, but I'm more of a magazine guy or an article person. I think my attention span it struggles with a book, but just doing stuff to kind of like recharge the batteries. It's been nice, because my last 4 years has kind of been a whirlwind, where it's been hard to take a vacation or anything. And I wouldn't say this is a vacation, but it's nice to have a little downtime too. And I'm taking advantage of it with my family.
Yeah. Have you gotten to a point where you feel like you have to get creative about what you're doing, or finding different ways to do maybe the same thing? Like, for example, an at-home workout where, people weren't necessarily prepared for this situation, and now they're having to do things differently.
We've just been walking, so we haven't really, my wife and I haven't done anything more than that. Mm-hmm. So, but we've gotten a little creative. We've gone to the forest and hiked on the trails, keeping social distancing in mind, of course. So, the state of Indiana, it's a pretty big state, but it's only got like 6 million people. So, we could still get outside and in a nice, safe manner.
Yeah.
The other thing I've been trying to do is reach out to the individuals on the team and just give them a call, see how they're doing. I think it's sometimes as a head coach, it's really hard to have an individual relationship with everybody. When you coach a combined team with professionals, I've talked to a lot of people on the phone, and my screen time is way up. And I wouldn't say I'm watching more Netflix. I'm trying to maintain my relationships via the phone.
Yeah. What do you think what kind of insight do you get from that, talking to that many people? Or have you been reaching out to, a lot of people say, oh, I've talked to people I haven't talked to in years. I've heard a lot of that recently. Have you reached out to anyone other than that circle on your team?
Yeah, I've had a few club coaches reach out to me, and um, I'll tell you, I've been really, really impressed with what some club coaches are doing. Like Tony Batis of PASA, he and I went to college together at USC, and some of the stuff he's doing with his team is amazing. Like they're like conducting practices via Zoom, and doing a pretty darn good job at it, to where they still get together at the time they would normally be practicing, and it's helping his club kind of stay, stay afloat, as well as still deliver the kind of service that their parents and their kids expected. And it's been really, it's been creative too. And some of the stuff, like today we did a minute to win it challenge, because like on Zoom, it's hard to do a bunch of stuff, when you've got this gallery of people. So we set up, Emily Eaton, one of our assistants, came up with the idea, set up a fork, and you lay it on the ground 2 feet away, and you rolled a quarter trying to get it caught in the fork, and you had a minute to do this. And believe it or not, it's a lot harder than you would think. So those are just some examples of things I'm doing or we're doing.
Yeah. So you mentioned your days at USC, which is something I've been wanting to do, is just, kind of reminisce with people about their swimming memories or some of their favorite swimming stories. I know my boss Mel mentions that he was on the national team with you. He brings that up quite frequently whenever you're mentioned. Do you have a favorite swimming memory from when you were on the national team or in college or high school?
I do. So I got one from, I'll go with the national team first, because it's a story I tell my team all the time. So I was a member of the 1991 Pan American Games team that went down to Havana, Cuba. And it was, the first time Americans have been allowed into, the country of Cuba, because it was, it's still a communist country and whatnot. And, we were doing just great. We were winning gold, silver, kind of sweeping our way through the meet. And we'd heard rumors that whenever Fidel Castro, their iconic leader, would go to a venue, that they would win a gold medal. And Cuba has always been good in baseball and boxing, track and field, but not so good in swimming. So, and this was a pretty impressive swimming pool. And I remember watching prelims of 200 breaststroke, and this Cuban breaststroker, kind of with a 1970 style stroke, not putting his face in the water or anything, he qualified for the A final. And I was like, wow, that was a really impressive swim by that guy. He dropped a ton of time. And then, when we came to finals, I remember walking in and my hair stood up on my arms and, on the top of my head, and the place was packed to the point where people were on other people's shoulders, lots of Cuban flags going back and forth. I mean, this probably seated 2,000 or 3,000 people. Okay. And there was a luxury box that had been empty the whole time. Mm-hmm. And in it was Fidel Castro and his whole entourage, with the army fatigues and everything. And so there was on one side it was stands, and on the other side were all the competitors. So we were looking at the stands. And so the 200 breaststroke came up, and the Cuban guy was like in lane 2, like a 2 or 7. And we had Nelson and Tyler Mayfield. And Nelson Diebel would go on the next year to win the gold medal at the Barcelona Olympics. Yeah. I mean, this guy was really good. It was not your typical like Pan Americans B team type group of people. It was a good team. And so the race starts off, and the Cubans in like last place at the first 50. But all I remember, I just was watching this kid because I was just super impressed by how he swam in prelims. And then he starts moving up on the second 50, and he's in like maybe 5th place. And then on the third 50, the guy just gets shot out of a cannon and picks off the 2 Canadians, a Brazilian, and he turns at the 150 wall in 3rd place. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy is going to get, he's going to get a medal, he's going to get a bronze medal. And the 2 Americans were in front. And then as they're coming down the home stretch, I'm looking at Tyler Mayfield, and he's tying up, and the Cuban passes him. And I'm like, I cannot believe this. Nelson still had a body length or 2 lead. And in the last 25, the Cuban pulled even to where they were even at the flags. And then they touched the wall simultaneously. And I was like afraid to look at the scoreboard. And I looked at it, and the Cuban won. And it's the greatest upset I have ever witnessed in the sport of swimming. And the guy leaped out of the water like he hadn't even swum a race. Cuban people fell out of the stands. So it was like a 12-foot fall. Like one guy was like limping. They threw flags down, and they wrapped the guy in a Cuban flag, and they stopped the meet, and they paraded him around a 50-meter pool like 2 or 3 times. And I was like, and I had to really go to the back for this. The only way to get across the pool, you couldn't walk across the deck. There was like a tunnel underneath. And so like I ran through that tunnel, and as I'm going to the tunnel, Fidel is coming the other way to give out the guy's award. Because one of my friends back at Texas was Dorsey Tierney, and she'd won, I think she won the gold medal for the women. Mm-hmm. And she always used to say that Fidel put the medal around her neck. Mm-hmm. And I walked right by Fidel Castro, like, just maybe a foot away. And and then we got back to the village, and it was just a socialistic type TV thing where there was a political channel and a sports channel, and all night long was this Cuban guy winning the gold medal in swimming. that dominated the whole news scene. But I always tell my team, no matter who you are, like if you get a lane, if you're in lane 8, you can still win the race. If you're in lane 2, you can still win the race, because I've seen that done by nobody. And I don't think he did anything after that, but mm-hmm. boy, that guy had his day in the sun. So that's kind of my favorite national team story. Collegiate story, like when I was at USC, I remember my junior year, I was at the Indianapolis Natatorium, and my teammate at USC, I was swimming a 400 IM with David Warden. And David Warden used to just kill people. He'd be like almost to 25 ahead of everybody else. He was like the world record holder. And, I think on either side of him was myself, and then Eric Namesnick, who was the great Michigan 400 IMer who passed away a few years ago, sadly. But, we were all competitors, and I was always the third wheel in that group. And I think my senior year, and I remember I was on the 200 medley relay, and then I had to go do the 400 IM like 10 minutes later, and I'm like, I'd never made that relay, so I was excited to make the relay, but I'm like, how am I going to swim a 400 IM like right after? That's like, I'll be too tired, or like, and my heart rate was still beating. I remember that on the blocks, and I dove in for the race, and I was like I was hanging with Namesnick, and got down to the freestyle, and I looked over, and I was like next to him. Wharton was killing us both, but I was like, wow, I could actually get second in this race. So I flipped with every 25 of the freestyle, still next to him, and I think I went no breath the whole last 25, and I was by 3/100ths of a second, and we took 1-2 in that race, which at NCAA's is super hard to do. And it's a moment I won't forget. I didn't win or anything, but it was pretty cool to beat a great swimmer like Eric. And he was so motivated after that race. He broke the American record, that very summer. So those are my 2 stories.
Wow, those are good ones. I have that Cuba one is that's amazing. That's really cool to hear.
I'll get you the name. A friend of mine looked it up because he was like, I don't believe that story. And I was like, man, I hope it's true, because like I've been telling that so much. I hope my memory serves.
Yeah.
It was almost 30 years ago now. And the guy, my God, you're right. It was Luis so-and-so, but like Luis Fernandez or something like that. But yeah, it's a good one.
That's awesome. Um, so back to more, I guess, current circumstances.
Yeah.
I guess maybe just for closing thoughts, what do you see out of this situation moving forward? Maybe, once your team can get back to more of a normal routine. I mean, do you see positives coming out of this? Do you have ideas for moving forward?
I do see positives. I think just in talking to some of my recruits who are, signed or committed, or my own team, they really miss going to class and going to practice. They miss it desperately. And I think that they're going to be more grateful that they can do that. And I think coaches kind of miss going to work, and we all do. So I think we're going to be more grateful for what we have, because, what we've been doing has been, largely taken away from us. But I look at this, you can look at this situation as a roadblock or like a toll booth. And I want to look at it as a toll booth where it's a pause. It's a pause going through something, but you're going to get to the other side, but you have to pay. And we're having to pay a little bit with this, with this pause. But I think that different parts of the country are going to get back sooner than others. Like if you're in the Midwest, we've kind of come through this largely unscathed, except for the economic impact.
Yeah.
But I think different parts of the country are going to reopen in a not equitable fashion. And that is just the way it is from a safety standpoint. But if you're in New York, it may be a while, and it may be peaking in other places later. But, when it's safe to come back, I think everybody's got their health experts. I know we have a team of 3 doctors, and they'll determine when it's safe. And then we're going to come back, I think, in tiers. So, and it may be something like 4 tiers where it's very gradual, like you don't just group a bunch of people together right off the bat. It'll be like, still doing social distancing, but you can come back and practice, and then more and more people over time, so that there's not like a flare up. And if we could just get some training in this summer, I'd be grateful. I would assume there's going to be no meets. First meets, if we're lucky, they'll start like October, November, and that'll be that. And hopefully we'll put this behind us. But I think some things won't really change, but some things will. I think swimming is a safe thing to do, because from what I understand, the virus doesn't really do well in chlorine. Copper and chlorine, it doesn't like it. So, hopefully our sport, will benefit from those things.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Ray. That was a pleasure, and I really appreciate it.
You betcha, Coleman. Good luck to you, and hope you and your family stay safe.
Yeah, thank you. You as well.